How do you locate every coyote on your property before you ever step foot in the woods? Not with tracks, not with trail cameras. You sit in your truck on a county road, you howl once, and you let them tell you where they are. 28 years calling predators in southern Iowa. Timber draws, CRP grass, river corridors that run between cattle country and woodlots. The one thing that separated the seasons where I killed dogs from the seasons where I sat through blank stand after blank stand was learning to locate before I ever made a setup. Most hunters who give up on coyotes never tried this. They walked in cold, called for an hour, drove home, and decided the dogs had moved off the property. The dogs were always there. They had no reason to come find a sound that was a half-mile out of their core area. Near the end, I will give you the one move that turns a vocal coyote hanging up at 400 yards into a coyote that runs through your shooting lane on the second sequence. Most guys never figure that part out. I did not for the first 10 years either. When a coyote answers a howl, something specific is happening in his head. He hears another coyote on his territory. That is the most important sentence in this whole video, so I will say it again. He hears another coyote on his territory, and his job, hardwired into him over thousands of years, is to either announce his position back or to come find out who the intruder is. A resident coyote in southern Iowa, in eastern Kansas, in the Texas brush country, all of them have a core area they defend. Maybe a square mile, maybe two. Inside that area, they know where every other coyote is supposed to be. When a strange howl comes from a half-mile away, the resident dog runs the calculation. If the howl is distant enough to be a neighbor on adjacent ground, he just answers. He confirms his location, the strange dog confirms his, and they both go back to whatever they were doing. If the howl is close, inside his core area, that is a different problem. That is an invader. That dog comes to find out who you are. That whole mechanism, the territorial defense response, is what every locating session takes advantage of. You are not asking him to come to you. You are asking him a question and listening for the answer. The biology gives him no choice but to respond, because his hearing reaches frequencies up to 65,000 hertz, more than 3 times the upper range of a human ear, and he can pinpoint the direction of a sound source within a few degrees at half a mile out. A howl from a county road carries information he cannot ignore. He has to file it. A buddy of mine who runs predator control on roughly 18,000 acres of private ground in west central Illinois told me he can mark every resident pair on every quarter section he hunts in one night of locating. He runs 80 stands a year off those marks. I have not personally counted his kills, but the maps he sends me look like a connect-the-dots puzzle of coyote pins. The gear is simple. You need a diaphragm howler, an electronic call, and a phone with a mapping app on it. That is the entire kit. The diaphragm is what you blow with your mouth, like a turkey diaphragm, but tuned for coyote vocalizations. Critter Call has been making them since the 1970s, and Major Boddicker, who designed them, was killing predators on the high plains before half the people watching this were born. Burnham Brothers makes a good one too. You can spend $8 or you can spend $30. The dogs do not check the price tag. The electronic caller does what your mouth call cannot, which is play sounds at high volume across open country with consistent reproduction. I run a Fox Pro on most of my locating runs because the speaker output reaches further than the cheaper units, and when you are trying to pull a response from a coyote at 800 yards, roughly half a mile, that volume difference matters. Other guys swear by ICO-Tech or Lucky Duck. The tool matters less than the technique. What you do not need is a $600 thermal optic to locate. You will not see the coyote. You are listening for him, marking the spot, and leaving. That is it. The phone is the most important piece of gear most hunters never think about. I run on X Hunt because it lets me drop a pin the second I hear a response, and the pin shows me the property lines, so I know if those dogs are bedding on public ground, I can hunt, or on the cattle ranch, I have no permission to enter. Method is where most hunters mess this up. They drive to their property, walk in 300 yards, and start howling next to their stand. Wrong. The whole point is to locate without educating, and walking into your hunting area to find your coyotes is the same as walking into a deer stand at noon to set your camera. You contaminate the ground. What you do instead is drive the perimeter of the property on roads, county blacktops, gravel 2 tracks, anywhere you would normally be in a vehicle. Pull over, reset your trip meter to 0, step out of the truck. Howl 3 or 4 long howls on your diaphragm, what predator hunters call lone howls, because they sound like a single coyote announcing his location. Wait 60 seconds. If nothing comes back, hit the E-call with a pair howl, 2 coyotes calling together. Wait another minute or 2. If still nothing, get back in the truck and drive. How far you drive between stops depends on the country. In open ground, eastern Colorado wheat country, western Kansas CRP, drive 2 miles between stops. The howls carry. In thick cover, southern Iowa river bottoms, Appalachian hardwood ridges, drive 1 mile. The sound does not travel as far. Either way, you watch the trip meter, not the speedometer, because what you care about is distance from your last stop, not how fast you are going. If a coyote answers, you mark the pin and you leave. You do not call back. You do not stay to confirm. The minute you keep howling at a dog you have already located, you start educating him. Mark, drive, next spot. One more thing on close responses. If a coyote answers from inside 200 yards, what predator hunters call rifle distance, you do not stand around waiting for confirmation. He is coming. Get back in the truck and drive while he is still howling. His vocalization masks your engine noise. He never connects the howl with a human leaving a vehicle. The next morning, when you set up on that pin, he is still treating that road as background, not as a threat zone. That single move has saved me more setups than any other piece of locating discipline I learned. Switching between the diaphragm and the E-call mid-stand is the trick that took me a few years to figure out. You blow lone howls on the diaphragm. Nothing. You hit pair howls on the Fox Pro. Nothing. Most guys at this point pack up and drive. What I learned to do, and what an old guy from northwest Wisconsin who taught me to call back when I was still running .222 Remingtons with iron sights, is run a different sound. Try a group howl, 4 or 5 coyotes vocalizing together. Try a whimper, a low, soft sound that mimics a stressed pup. Try a coyote bark, the sharp alarm vocalization that sometimes pulls a response when nothing else will. The principle is the same as fishing. If they are not hitting your spinnerbait, throw a jig. The dogs have moods. Some nights they want lone howls. Other nights they will only answer to a group. There is no formula. There is only the willingness to switch. I had a stand last winter where I ran lone, pair, and group on 3 different stops along a county road and got nothing. Switched to a single bark howl on the diaphragm at the 4th stop, and 3 coyotes lit up from a creek bottom 600 yards out. Roughly 6 football fields end to end. I have no idea why the bark worked when the howls did not. Maybe one of them was a wandering dog with no settled territory, edgy and looking for trouble. Maybe the resident pair had pups close. I logged it in the notebook and moved on. My wife asked me once why I keep a notebook on coyotes when I do not keep one on her. I told her I have her figured out already. She did not find this funny. Best time to locate for a daylight hunt is the last 2 hours of darkness before legal shooting time. Coyotes are most vocal between full dark and dawn, and the family groups are communicating about position before they bed down for the day. You locate at 4 a.m., mark your pins, sleep in the truck, or grab coffee, and you are setting up on the closest pin at first legal light. The coyotes have not moved far. They are bedded within a few hundred yards of where they last vocalized. If you are night hunting, you locate immediately before you set up, sometimes within 10 minutes of the call. The pin is fresh, the dog has not relocated, you move in and you call. Quick note on this. Night hunting coyotes is legal in many states, regulated in others, and completely banned in a handful. Same with using electronic calls for predators. Most states allow them, a few do not. Check your state wildlife agency website before you head out. A 2-minute search before you drive saves you a 5-figure fine and a court date you do not want. During pup rearing, late June through mid-August, the rules change. The adult pair is anchored to a small core area because the pups cannot travel far yet. Locate them once and they will be there for weeks, not hours. You can hunt those dogs 3 or 4 days later off the same pin and they will still be on it. The pups are the leash. The adults will not leave the pups, and that gives you a window most hunters never use because they are sitting on a deer stand instead. One caveat on conditions. Wind above 20 miles an hour, what feels strong enough to lay down standing crops, will shut a locating session down. Coyotes go quiet because they cannot pinpoint sound direction in heavy wind, and the howls you send do not carry the way they should. Save the locating run for calm or near calm nights. The morning after a front has passed, when the wind drops and the temperature stabilizes, is one of the best windows of the year for finding vocal dogs. There is a myth that won't die in coyote hunting forums, and it goes like this. Locating educates the dogs. Just blind call, the argument goes. You are pressuring them every time you howl. I will tell you what every guy who actually kills coyotes consistently knows about that argument. It is wrong, and it is wrong for a specific reason most people never think through. A coyote that hears a howl from a road 200 yards from his bedding cover does not know a human is involved. He hears another coyote. He answers, or he comes to investigate, and he finds nothing because you are already gone. Maybe he sniffs the spot you stood, smells the human ground scent, and notes that humans were on the road. Humans are on roads. He has known this since he was a pup. He filters it out. The howl gets associated with the road, not with you. He goes back to bed. What educates a coyote is walking into his core area, calling for 45 minutes from inside the cover he uses, getting busted on the wind, and leaving boot scent across his approach lane. That is education. Locating from a county road, hearing a response, and driving away while he is still howling so your engine noise is masked by his vocalization, is the least invasive form of scouting that exists. Less invasive than a trail camera with an SD card you have to walk in to retrieve. Less invasive than walking property lines looking for tracks. The educated coyote is the coyote you stomped through his cover trying to find. The located coyote is the one who told you exactly where he was and never knew you were there. Two different animals, two different outcomes. Everything in this video, plus 60 more field-tested techniques, is in the Coyote Hunter's Bible from Deadwind Company. 229 pages of coyote behavior, science, scent control, stand placement, calling sequences, breeding season tactics, and educated coyote techniques, with a quick reference card you can take to the stand. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Every coyote hunter watching this has had the same experience. You drive your property the night before a hunt. You howl from a road. You get an answer from 400 yards into a creek bottom, the length of 4 football fields end to end. You mark it. You sleep on it. You set up at first light. The wind is right, the stand is clean, you call your sequence, and the coyote answers from the same bottom. He will not come. He howls back at 20, 30, 40 minutes in. He sits there and vocalizes from the cover and never breaks. You go home and you blame your call. The call was not the problem. The problem is something I read on a podcast comment thread once, and it took me embarrassingly long to understand. A vocal coyote is a coyote who is comfortable. He is on his ground, he hears another dog, and he is content to announce his presence and wait for the other dog to either move on or come closer. He has no reason to come find you. You are not enough of a threat. You are not enough of an opportunity. You are background noise. The hunters who say vocal coyotes will not come in are right about the symptom and wrong about the cause. The dog will not come because the calling distance is wrong, not because the dog is broken. This is the single biggest misunderstanding in predator hunting. I held this misunderstanding for somewhere between 8 and 10 of my early years calling. It cost me a lot of dogs. I will get to the fix in a minute. Just hold that thought. There is a related myth I want to knock down before we go further. Some hunters will tell you that howling scares submissive coyotes and young pups. The pups especially, the argument goes, will run from a strange howl because they associate it with adult aggression. I have heard this said by hunters with 30 years of experience. It is wrong. And it is wrong because it confuses how pups respond to known adults with how they respond to strangers. Pups, 6 to 12 weeks old, are excited by howls. Howls mean food and family. They have not yet developed the caution of an adult, and they have not been hunted enough to associate calls with danger. A young pup, hearing a strange howl from a quarter-mile out, is curious. He may not come, depending on whether his parents bark him down, but he is not afraid. The submissive yearling who tucks his tail around the dominant alpha in the family group does that because he knows the alpha. He has a peck order with that specific dog. A strange howl is not threatening to him because he has no relationship with whoever is making it. He may come check it out, looking for a place where he is not at the bottom of the social ladder. That is how dispersal works. Young coyotes find new ground by leaving home and answering to strange howls. If strange howls scared them, the species would have gone extinct. They go investigate. A wildlife biologist would phrase that better than I just did. But the principle holds. Strange howls do not scare coyotes. Strange howls trigger the response that makes locating work in the first place. Once you have a pin, the work changes. You mark the location on your phone, you note the wind direction in the truck, and you do not return that night. The dog goes back to whatever he was doing. The next morning, or whenever you go in, you do not approach the pin from upwind. You do not approach from the road you howled on, because that is where he heard the strange dog, and he is going to be alert in that direction. You approach from a third angle, downwind to crosswind, using terrain that hides your entry, a creek, a hedgerow, the back of a CRP draw. You set up roughly 300 yards from the pin, the length of 3 football fields, close enough that when you call again, your sound is now coming from inside his core area, not from outside it. That distance change is everything. The night before, you howled from outside his territory. He answered, comfortable, no need to move. The morning of, you are inside his territory. The same howl is now an invader he has to respond to physically, not just vocally. The pin is not just a location. It is a starting point for the actual hunt. And the actual hunt requires you to use the pin to figure out how to get closer than he is comfortable with. Same wind principle I covered in the stand setup video. Where your scent goes determines whether you see a dog or whether you see tracks walking away. Get the pin, get the wind, get inside his core. That is the order, and skipping any one of those steps puts you back in the parking lot at noon wondering what went wrong. This whole approach falls apart in one specific situation, and you need to know about it before you waste a morning. If you have already shot at a coyote on the property and missed, or if another hunter has been calling that ground in the past week, the locating sessions go silent. Surviving dogs go quiet. They do not respond to howls for several days, sometimes a week or more. You will sit through 3 or 4 locating runs, hearing nothing, and conclude the coyotes are gone. They are not gone. They are listening and choosing not to answer, because the last time they answered a strange howl, something tried to kill one of them. When that happens, the only fix is to relocate at least a mile away to a property that has not been hunted recently and start over there. Or to wait. 5 to 7 days of silence on the property, no human pressure, no calling, no driving the perimeter, will sometimes reset them. They forget. They go back to vocalizing. Pushing locating sessions on a freshly pressured property is the same as bumping a deer off his bed every morning for a week and wondering why you stopped seeing him. I learned this on a property in southeastern Iowa where my buddy and I killed 2 dogs out of a 4 coyote family group on the same morning. And then I came back 4 nights later and located the property and heard nothing. The 2 surviving dogs had gone silent. They stayed silent for 9 days according to my notebook. On day 10 they answered. On day 11 I killed one of them. The coyote does not forgive on your timeline. He forgives on his. What I'm about to walk you through is the one piece that took me longer to figure out than anything else. And it is the answer to that vocal coyote problem I left hanging earlier. It is not a calling sequence. It is not a different sound. It is not a piece of gear. It is a positioning decision that completely changes whether a vocal coyote turns into a dead coyote or whether he hangs up at 400 yards and laughs at you all morning. A guy who runs predator control across roughly 22,000 acres of ranch ground in West Texas told me this when I asked him why his kill numbers were 3 times mine. His answer was 11 words. Move closer until your howl makes him uncomfortable. Then call him. 11 words. That is the entire trick on vocal coyotes that will not commit. The reason a located coyote answers from cover and never moves toward you is that you are too far away to be a threat. He hears another dog announcing its location and he announces back. The exchange is settled. Both coyotes know where each other are. Nobody has to move. What you do is close the distance. If your pin is at 600 yards and the dog answers from there but will not break cover, you do not call louder. You do not switch sounds. You back out, you reroute, and you set up again at 300 yards using terrain to mask your approach. From inside the 300-yard ring, you call. Your howl is inside his core. He is not announcing position to a far-off neighbor. He is announcing position to a stranger that has crossed his line, and his hardwired territorial response is no longer satisfied with vocal exchange. He has to come check. This is what professional control hunters do that most weekend hunters never do. They locate, they mark, and then they invade. They use the located dog's response as the starting point for a setup that violates his sense of distance. They get under his skin physically. The vocal coyote, who would not come at 600 yards, will run through your shooting lane at 250, because the math has changed. I tested this deliberately one January in southern Iowa, across what my notebook says was 11 setups on located but vocal dogs. 6 of them committed inside 200 yards on the second sequence. 3 more came in but hung up. 2 never moved. That is not a controlled study. It is enough to make me rebuild every locating to hunt transition I do. The dogs that would not come for 10 years started coming. Same calls, same gear, closer position. The coyote can't read your distance, but he can feel it. Try this on your next stand. Locate the night before, mark every pin, and then on the morning hunt, force yourself to set up closer than feels comfortable. The temptation is always to set up at the field edge a long way out so you can see everything. The dogs do not need you to see everything. They need you to be near enough to be a threat. Get inside the territory. Use the pin as a starting line, not a destination. This is Deadwind Company. Next time we are getting into what to do when 2 coyotes come in from different directions on the same stand, and you have to decide which one to shoot first.